Hi everybody. It is a chilly day in Florida, and but it's still time to do this week's video, so get ready. Okay, everybody. In my last video, I talked about what I considered four fundamentals of the gospel, and one of those fundamentals was that it was all about one man's faith and one man's obedience, and that was the faith or the belief of Jesus Christ and his obedience. And it's not about ours, it's about his. Salvation and redemption come through his faith and obedience, not our own. So I want to remind everybody about John the Baptist. Jesus said there was no one greater than him, and yet that same man who once, when he first saw Jesus, said, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." He later, when he was in prison, sent men to him and asked him, "Are you the one, or should we be looking for another?" And Jesus replied to tell John, "Look, the blind see, the deaf hear, the sick are healed, the dead are raised, and the gospel is preached preached to the poor." And and then Jesus goes on to tell the people about how great John was. Yet John was faltering in his belief. That's pretty good to point out. Um, if John was faltering in his belief, then, everybody's in trouble. Well, everybody was in trouble, but uh, there is good news. See, later on in John chapter 14, Jesus talks about the believer, and he says, "And verily, verily, he who believes, greater works shall he do, because I go to my Father in heaven." And I really want to point out that Jesus said, "He who believes," not those who believe. He was very particular about making it singular, not plural. And because as many of us who grew up in evangelical Christianity we were taught that if we believe, we can do the same thing Jesus did. We can heal the sick and all these other things. And sure, I'm not going to go into that right now. Um, However, that was not his point. His point was something completely different. And his words were very, very carefully chosen. He said, "Greater works." See, Jesus did heal the sick and raise the dead. Um, and then he did other works too. He said that he would lay his life down freely, that nobody would take it, and he would take it back up again. And he did. Now, remember, the operative word is still greater works. Now, we have no idea of anybody who's ever done that before, because other than Jesus, I don't believe anybody ever has. And I'm pretty convinced of that, and I'm sure you are too. However, the operative word is still greater works. And this is where you can take comfort, a lot of comfort. It's really good news. Because if you believe, he says, if he's talking about the believer, he who believes will do greater works. So what did Jesus do? He not only healed a few sick physically and raised a few people physically from the dead, but he also, in his faith and obedience unto death, he healed spiritually all who were dead in Adam due to Adam's sin and its condemnation of death upon everyone. He healed them from the sin that condemned them to death, that came from Adam's lack of faith and disobedience. And by his obedience, he took all to the cross, and everyone was baptized in his death. And the greater works is everyone was raised to life in him, not just raised from spiritual death, but raised to new life as new creatures, equal with him, equal with God. That's revolutionary, folks. And there's only one man's belief and one man's obedience who did it. He who believes did it. And he's the only one we need to believe, and he did. It's revolutionary. Have a revolutionary week.